The conference room fell silent the moment the giant glass screen shattered. Not from an accident. Not from a technical malfunction. But from the sheer force of a furious CEO slamming his metal tablet against the wall after discovering a catastrophic $50 million design error hidden inside his company's newest skyscraper project. Papers scattered across the polished floor. Executives lowered their eyes. Senior architects froze in fear. And standing quietly near the back of the room, holding a worn-out lunch bag and a faded blue jacket, was the one man nobody respected enough to notice. A single father named Rowan Hale. And within the next few hours, that overlooked maintenance engineer would become the reason hundreds of lives were saved, and the reason one of the most powerful CEOs in the city broke down in tears in front of his entire company. Before we begin this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Wisdom Story House, if you believe kindness and second chances can change a person's life forever. Your support helps bring more meaningful stories like this to people around the world. The morning sunlight poured across the towering skyline of Belridge City as thousands of workers rushed through crowded sidewalks carrying coffee cups and briefcases. Above them all stood the future pride of the city, the massive Helix Crown Tower, a sleek 80-story skyscraper designed to redefine luxury and innovation. Investors called it revolutionary. News channels called it historic. CEO Victor Mercer called it his legacy. Victor was known throughout the business world as a ruthless perfectionist. He built Mercer Dynamics from almost nothing into one of the largest architectural engineering firms in the country. Employees feared him because he demanded impossible standards and punished even the smallest mistake. Behind his expensive suits and magazine covers was a man who trusted results more than people. And that morning, he was already furious before the meeting even began. The problem started when an independent inspector discovered a critical flaw buried deep inside the tower's support load calculations. One overlooked structural imbalance in the eastern wind resistance system meant the building could become dangerously unstable during extreme weather conditions. If construction continued, the entire company could face lawsuits, bankruptcy, and public humiliation. $50 million had already been invested. Victor exploded. Inside the executive conference room, senior engineers scrambled to defend themselves while project managers blamed software teams. Fear moved through the room like electricity. Nobody wanted responsibility. Nobody wanted to lose their career. And near the back wall stood Rowan Hale, replacing a faulty projector cable while quietly overhearing everything. Rowan was 38 years old and looked older from exhaustion alone. He worked in facility maintenance for Mercer Dynamics, repairing electrical systems, cleaning equipment rooms, and fixing broken office hardware nobody else cared about. Most executives barely knew his name. Some assumed he was invisible. But Rowan had once dreamed of becoming a structural engineer himself. Years earlier, he had attended one of the best engineering schools in the state. His professors believed he had extraordinary talent. But life collapsed after his wife, Mira, passed away unexpectedly from a sudden illness shortly after their daughter Ivy was born. Grief destroyed his focus. Hospital bills swallowed his savings. He dropped out before graduation and spent years taking any work he could find just to survive and raise his little girl alone. Every morning before sunrise, Rowan prepared Ivy for school, braided her messy curls after watching online tutorials late at night, packed her lunches with handwritten notes, and rode 2 buses to work wearing the same repaired boots winter after winter. He never complained. Even when co-workers mocked his quiet nature or ignored him completely, he simply kept moving forward because his daughter depended on him. That day, while crouched behind the conference screen reconnecting wires, Rowan noticed something nobody else in the room had considered. The numbers being argued on the display weren't entirely wrong. The problem came from a hidden chain reaction between the external brace geometry and a secondary thermal expansion formula buried inside the software automation model. It was subtle, dangerous, and incredibly rare. Rowan stared at the calculations in disbelief. His heart began pounding. Because he knew exactly how to fix it. For several long seconds, he argued with himself silently. Men like Victor Mercer did not listen to maintenance workers. Speaking up could get him humiliated or fired. He imagined Ivy waiting after school by the apartment window. He imagined losing the tiny paycheck keeping their lives together. But he also imagined the tower collapsing someday. And he couldn't stay silent. With trembling hands, Rowan stepped forward and quietly interrupted the meeting. The room turned toward him with visible annoyance. Victor's face darkened immediately. He looked at Rowan as though an insect had wandered into a royal banquet. The CEO demanded to know why a maintenance employee was speaking during an executive crisis. Several managers smirked openly. One architect laughed under his breath. But Rowan calmly walked toward the screen and pointed to the load distribution model. His voice shook at first, but confidence slowly returned as years of buried knowledge resurfaced. He explained that the flaw was not centered in the wind resistance calculations themselves. It originated from an overlooked thermal expansion variable causing progressive asymmetrical stress during seasonal temperature shifts. The issue could be corrected by redesigning the east stabilization sequence and redistributing pressure loads across 3 hidden support nodes. Silence swallowed the room. Even the senior engineers stared in shock. Victor's anger only grew worse. He accused Rowan of wasting everyone's time pretending to be smarter than licensed professionals. The CEO publicly humiliated him, calling him a janitor with delusions. His voice thundered through the room as executives watched Rowan stand there absorbing every insult without defending himself. Then Victor ordered security to remove him. But before anyone could move, the company's lead structural analyst slowly spoke up. She had just rerun Rowan's proposed correction through the live simulation system. And the error disappeared completely. The room froze. No one breathed. The revised model stabilized the tower perfectly. Every projection turned green. The $50 million disaster had just been solved by the quiet single father everyone ignored for years. Victor stared at the screen as disbelief replaced rage. The humiliation he intended for Rowan suddenly rebounded onto himself in front of his entire executive team. But Rowan did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply lowered his eyes and apologized softly for interrupting before returning to gather his toolbox. That moment should have changed everything instantly. But real life rarely changes that quickly. Although executives praised Rowan privately afterward, whispers spread throughout the company. Some accused him of secretly stealing information. Others resented that an unrecognized maintenance worker had solved a problem elite engineers missed. Rowan returned to fixing lights and repairing elevators while the world above him continued almost unchanged. Still, something inside Victor Mercer began to shift. For the first time in years, the CEO could not stop thinking about the man he publicly insulted. Late that evening, long after most employees went home, Victor walked through the nearly empty building and noticed a dim office light glowing downstairs near the maintenance corridor. Curious, he approached quietly. Inside the small break room, Rowan sat alone helping Ivy with homework over an old video call on his cracked phone screen while eating vending machine crackers for dinner. Ivy excitedly showed him a drawing she made of the two of them standing beside a giant building under bright sunshine. Rowan smiled with exhausted warmth that no boardroom had ever seen from him before. Victor stood silently outside the doorway listening. He heard Rowan encouraging Ivy to believe in herself even when life becomes unfair. He heard him apologize for missing her school recital because of overtime work. And he heard the little girl telling her father she was proud of him anyway. Something painful awakened inside Victor. Because years earlier, while building his empire, he had sacrificed nearly every relationship in his own life. His marriage ended. His son stopped speaking to him. Success gave him wealth but quietly stole his humanity piece by piece until all that remained was pressure, control, and loneliness. And for the first time in decades, Victor felt ashamed. The next morning, employees arrived to shocking news. Victor Mercer personally requested Rowan Hale attend the executive strategy meeting. Rumors exploded through the building. Some expected another public humiliation. Others believed Rowan was about to receive a promotion. Rowan himself walked nervously into the towering executive floor wearing his only clean button-up shirt, hands shaking slightly from anxiety. The room was packed. Investors. Directors. Department heads. Victor stood silently at the front. For several long moments, nobody spoke. Then the CEO did something nobody in Mercer Dynamics had ever seen before. He apologized. Not with corporate politeness. Not with empty public relations language. But with genuine emotion that cracked through his voice in front of everyone. Victor admitted he judged Rowan based on status instead of character. He confessed that arrogance blinded him to the value of people quietly carrying the company from the shadows. And then he revealed something that stunned the entire room. Years earlier, when reviewing anonymous scholarship applications, Victor himself had unknowingly approved a small educational grant for a struggling engineering student named Rowan Hale after reading an essay about resilience and hope. Rowan had no idea. Victor had no memory of it until he searched Rowan's background overnight. The CEO admitted that while he forgot the application instantly, Rowan had spent years honoring that opportunity despite unimaginable hardship. Tears filled Rowan's eyes as memories of his late wife and abandoned dreams came rushing back all at once. Victor then offered Rowan a full engineering position with complete educational sponsorship to finish his degree, along with healthcare support for IV and a salary that would finally free them from surviving paycheck to paycheck. The room erupted into stunned applause. But the most emotional moment came afterward. Instead of shaking Victor's hand immediately, Rowan asked only one question. He asked whether the company would also create opportunities for overlooked workers hidden throughout the building the same way he had been overlooked. The room fell silent again. Because everyone understood the deeper meaning behind his words. Rowan wasn't thinking only about himself. He was thinking about every invisible person carrying burdens nobody noticed. The janitors working night shifts. The cafeteria workers missing time with family. The interns too afraid to speak. The exhausted parents silently struggling through life while the world judged them by titles instead of humanity. Victor looked around the room slowly. And for the first time in years, the powerful CEO truly saw the people inside his company. Not numbers. Not productivity charts. People. That single moment transformed Mercer Dynamics forever. Within months, the company launched scholarship programs, employee education initiatives, childcare assistance, and mental health support systems inspired directly by Rowan's story. Workers who once felt invisible finally felt valued. Productivity rose. Employee turnover dropped. But more importantly, kindness returned to a place once ruled entirely by fear. And every afternoon, sunlight still poured through the windows of Belridge City while Rowan walked Ivy home from school holding her tiny hand proudly, no longer ashamed of the dreams life forced him to bury. Sometimes the people carrying the heaviest pain are also the ones quietly holding everyone else together. And sometimes the loudest person in the room learns the greatest lesson from the quietest soul standing in the corner. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, and share this video so more people can experience stories that remind us to see the humanity in others. And before this story ends, comment below, kindness sees what pride ignores. Because you never truly know what battle someone is fighting silently behind tired eyes and humble clothes. Years later, visitors entering Mercer Dynamics would notice a framed photograph hanging near the executive lobby. It showed a father and daughter standing together beneath the completed Helix Crown Tower during a bright afternoon sunrise. Beneath the photo was a simple inscription that every employee eventually memorized. The strongest foundations are built by the people nobody notices. And every single person who read those words understood exactly why.